Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
Why does Montessori teach kids cursive?
Ah, the ultimate question. Why does Montessori teach cursive? Montessori actually observed that young children, and I saw it here this evening, when they pick up any writing implement, be it a crayon or a pen, make circles. It's a natural flowing movement. They don't make a stick and a ball. So that's where she started, because that's what print is, okay? She also said, well, you know, we as adults, we do cursive. And, I mean, less so nowadays in the day of computer, but young children naturally want to do what adults do. So why not start with cursive? It's a natural flow. More recent studies, not in Montessori's time, but more recent studies have shown that for children who have any tendency for reversals, whether it's because of dyslexia or they haven't gotten the full visual discrimination, they do better with cursive. It's easier to distinguish a cursive B from a cursive D. So all of those factors come into play. And, yeah, their friends are all learning print. Most children readily make the transition from cursive to print. So. Okay, there was one question on here about discipline. How should parents handle discipline for the Montessori child, especially at the preteen years? I do a series of parent workshops on that, so there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. But I have a recommendation for you. I find that there are a series of books called Love and Logic. And they are mostly by Jim and Charles Fay, F-A-Y. And sometimes they co-author with a person named Foster Klein. They have books for all age levels. And they are fantastic. They are very practical, very real. They deal with real situations as a parent. You know, not pie in the sky sorts of things. Whoops. Thank you, Carol. And so I would recommend that if you're having some challenges with discipline, that you read those books. I would recommend that for teachers as well as parents, because they are so, and they're very attuned with what we do in Montessori.
What are the books again?
Okay, there's a whole series of them called Love and Logic. Okay.
Workshops all over, yeah.
And there are workshops all over the place. If you go online, you can find out about, people get trained in this and then do local workshops. We have a few teachers in Milwaukee. And Jim and Charles Fay are the authors. So, and they do have things on the adolescent years. So, as well as the toddlers and everything. Yes?
I have it's going to sound like an abstract question, but it actually isn't. But in the Montessori program with it, there's a lot of focus on results, and kind of the rational process is kind of built in there, so that we see things as a sequence, steps, and evolve through our senses and quite a few other things. But from the Montessori perspective, how do things like inspiration and vision actually integrate into the Montessori program? Because those things aren't, they involve rational, and I know they occur in adults. It's easier to talk about it as adults. But I believe they still occur with children.
Oh, yeah.
Perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
They may not communicate it, but when it breaks into the Montessori program a little bit, when I look at it, I'm like, well, how does that turn into? It's immediately broken down into results and step-by-step sequences, and those things aren't really vision. They're not really inspiration. You can't rationalize inspiration.
Yeah, you can't rationalize inspiration or creativity. You know, now one of the things that may be kind of coming in here in your question is that Montessorians, particularly people in the Children's House, are very emphatic about the fact that the materials have a purpose and that there are ways to use the materials that extend that purpose, But then there are ways that are inappropriate, like you can't turn a red rod into a sword or a gun or a choo-choo train. But you don't have to just do red rods exactly the way your teacher showed you. It is fine to pick up a red rod and compare the height of the table or another child or things like that. So I want to, be cautious around here that we're not going that direction. But in terms, yeah, okay.
Fantasy or
right.
Fantasy oriented.
Yeah. But I think that there are lots of chances, even in a children's house, for inspiration because they're not limited to just using the materials. They're extending things into the environment. They can tell stories, write stories. Hopefully they're doing artwork. Those are outlets for inspiration. In the elementary, the inspiration is often takes off from lessons. I can give a lesson on the rotation of the earth around the sun, and the children will take off in so many different directions. I can't tell you that I'm always astonished with where they go with it. They may just reproduce what I did, but they may be inspired to. I had a 9-year-old in my 9 to 12 class create his own universe, almost like he was doing a science fiction story. So I think that's kind of what you're getting at, that sort of, that comes into their minds, and they get a little seed, and then they're inspired to do something. So I think it happens. Part of what happens right now, particularly in public school Montessori, is we so worry about those test results and meeting adequate yearly progress and all that sort of thing, that we get a little hyper-focused on math and language. I actually see that a lot in the private schools too, but getting all of the lessons in and giving everything about the universe, and then allowing children to move off in their own direction, I think is kind of the fertilizer for inspiration. Yes?
Well, my experience with my daughter, she's been in Montessori since she was 2.5, and it seems like that the structure and the foundation that she gets in Montessori when she's out of school, she can turn things around. Her creativity really, I think it's very necessary that it's like the yin and the yang, that she has what Montessori has to offer, but then outside of school, she creates her own world in a more free way than I think. I've never had a child in a structured class except me. But, it seems to work that way with her. It's a balancing type thing.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, other questions? Comments? Suggestions from one parent to another? You've heard kind of the questions that were asked, and any of you have suggestions for other parents, for anybody that you've found works? Yes?
Is there Montessori anywhere for junior high, high school, and college?
Yes. I want to inspire you. Yeah, I want you guys to keep going. In Milwaukee, I mentioned that we had the problem with the middle school model. Well, we tuned it right politically because the whole public system was beginning to move away from that model and back to the K-8 schools. And we were just so anxious to keep our 6th graders that we said, oh, all right, we'll do an adolescent program. So we started the 7th grade and then added the 8th grade, and lo and behold, we fell in love with those students. I mean, for the longest time, it was like, oh no, the 7th graders are coming. Oh no, the 8th graders are coming. They're going to be wild. They're going to be all this stuff. But we gave them the environment they needed, and they are wonderful. They add so much to our school. So there are experiments going on all over the United States, in public and private, with adolescent programs. Montessori's original vision for the 12 to 15-year-old was that they go and live on a farm, away from their parents, in a boarding school. Yeah, sounds pretty good. And they actually help to run the farm. They learn about machineries. They do some